Hello guys, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going through my round 19 AFL tips, so let's get straight into it. I had a pretty poor round last week, if I'm being honest. I got 5 out of 9, which isn't too bad, so I got more right than I did wrong. But we started off on Friday night between Collingwood and Geelong. I thought Collingwood would respond, even though Geelong had found a couple of wins in form. The Cats, they were just too good in the end, and it definitely shows that they are the better side this year. Jezza played really well. I think he kicked 3 or 2 goals. He always has a good record against Collingwood. And yeah, Collingwood, their issues continue, looking really disappointing now. Time's running out, as their coach Craig McRae said. They need to start winning again. And I still have faith in them to make the 8, but if they don't win against Hawthorn this week, things could start to get a little bit ugly from here for Collingwood. So yeah, get the incorrect result and the incorrect tip. And then, again, I thought I'd just back in the Fremantle Dockers to get it done. Again, this was in Launceston, so Hawthorn have won their last 4 there, I believe. 6 out of their last 7. The Hawks won by 13. Pretty interesting game this one was. I think Hawthorn, they were just the better team when they play at home. And Fremantle, I wouldn't be too worried. I mean, they did look a bit boring again, just to say the least. But yeah. Went with the Swans by 32. They actually won by 79. Look, I thought I was a bit poor from North, even though they did make the trip over to the SCG. Look, Sydney, they had a couple losses in a row, and considering that North been playing some pretty good footy, I thought this was a bit of a letdown, but hey, let's give credit to the Swans. They really blasted North Melbourne out of the water. Heaney wasn't playing, but they still managed to find quite a few goals, but yeah, Chad Warner looked pretty good. I was only watching snippets of this game, but yeah, credit to Sydney for just building up some percentage. Well, they actually lose percentage because they've got too much percentage, actually, but yeah, didn't think they'd win by that much, but credit to them. Went with the Bulldogs by 15. I'm really happy about this tip. They actually won by 14, so I get the correct result and the correct scoreline. I just felt at Marvel. I feel like the Dogs, every time they lose a disappointing game, they always respond. Also, they have a pretty good record against Carlton. Now, to start off this game, I believe they started off 0-7, 0 goals, 7. And they probably should have been even winning at quarter time. I think they were losing by like 5 goals or 4 goals at quarter time. Then they managed to just come back and take the win. This is a really good game to watch, high scoring. But yeah, the Blues defensively at the moment are just looking really poor. So yeah, credit to the Dogs there. Then this game disappointed me. Went with the Saints by 17. I didn't know the weather was going to be this bad. I think this was just a case of, we couldn't score and it was wet, so it was sloppy footy. But Adelaide, they still managed to kick, 4 goals in that last quarter. I think, if it wasn't wet, we could have won that game. I'm not too disappointed with this result. But again, I am sort of disappointed considering that we did just knock off the premiership favourites, and we only scored 5 goals tonight. I think we only took 5 marks in that last quarter. We just couldn't take marks. Literally, we would have scored way more if we had just taken good marks. And so yeah, credit to Adelaide. They were pretty good in that last quarter. How about Riley Fieldford, or whatever his name is? I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. Could be getting that incorrect. Kicking those late 2 goals. He looked absolutely amazing. He's going to be a start. Then again, this was probably this was an upset, I would say. I went with the Bombers by 18. The D's, wow, what a response. They actually won by 17. And yeah, Essendon just got a couple junk time goals. This could have been a 6-goal blowout. But yeah, credit to the D's, They really responded in a way. Now they travel over to Perth to play the Dockers, and the Bombers, they were pretty disappointing. They don't want to let their season slip away again. That being said, I don't think they'll miss the 8, but they'll be wanting to fight for top 4, and you just can't be losing these games. Especially at the G. And we moved on, went with the Suns by 7. They actually won by 14. I actually got quite a few correct scorelines, correct results. They continue their 9-game win streak at home, Gold Coast. And yeah, they end their 11-game losing streak to the Power, because that's the second time in their history they've beaten the Power. Last time they actually bet Port Adelaide was their first ever win, and since then Port Adelaide have won all of those. So yeah, pretty good that the Suns got the result there. Went with the Giants by 16. They actually won by 24. look, I thought Richmond would be competitive, as I thought. This was a pretty high-scoring game. I wasn't watching this one, but, you know, Jesse Hogan and Toby Green, those guys were insane. You know, they just really work in the Giants' forward line. But credit to the Tigers, they stuck it right up to the Giants. Went the Lions by 63. They actually won by 13 in Simo's farewell game. So, yeah, credit to the Eagles. You know, they really took it up to Brisbane. And at points, they were going to look like they should have won the game. But, yeah, I probably shouldn't have tipped Brisbane by 63. Probably should have thought really deeply about this more. But Brisbane, they were just a bit too good in the end. And, yeah, so I get the 5 out of 9. Although I do move up in Rob React's tipping comp because I did get quite a few scorelines right this week, which I'm thrilled about. But we start off at Marvel Stadium next. Oh, no, we don't. Oh, God. Super Breeze got the games mixed up. I'm pretty sure this is like on the Sunday, but we have Brisbane taking on Sydney at the Gabba. Look, this game, look, the Swans, they've had a nice win over North Melbourne, a nice big win. The Lions, on the other hand, well, they have now won 6 in a row. I believe they have the biggest winning streak in the AFL as of current. So they're in the best of form. And at the Gabba, this is going to be a real test for Sydney, you know. I feel like lately they, you know, I think Fremantle and St Kilda were a test, but not as big as a test as this. Because now that the Lions have won those 6 in a row, they're actually in the top 4. So they win this, I think they'll probably make the top 4, to be honest, just knowing the side they are. At the end of the day, they are the grand finalists from last year. I'm going to tip Brisbane in this one. I think that they're just really in form. Sydney, they're not in the best of form. I know they thrashed North Melbourne last week. But this is a different story. They're at the Gabba. I feel like Brisbane, if they win this game, they can prove that they are top 4. So, yeah, the Swans, they're probably still fighting for that top 2 spot. Obviously, they've obviously pretty much locked it in now. Let's go with Brisbane by 12 points to get a win at the Gabba. It's going to be an interesting contest. This game is on the Sunday, obviously. I don't know why it's on the Friday. This is why probably next week I will tip on ESPN because I haven't done that in a while. But anyways, Brisbane by 12 there. Next up, we have the Blues taking on the Roos at Marvel Stadium. I believe this is the last game of the round. So it's on the Sunday, last game of the round, at Marvel. Now, the Blues, they've been a bit shaky as of late. You know, the defence just hasn't been working as of late, and they've been conceding some pretty big points. They conceded 116 against the Giants and 100 against the Dogs. Meanwhile, North Melbourne, you know, they're actually playing some competitive footy. If you excuse last week, the travel up to the SCG, the G in Sydney, you know, they've actually been playing some competitive footy, and their recent game at Marvel Stadium obviously was a win. So, yeah, look, I think North Melbourne can really take it up to Carlton, but you just have to tip the Blues here to get a response win. So, look, I think North can actually make this game pretty competitive. But I think the Blues, they'll be wanting to respond. We're going to go with the Blues to win by 29 points. And I'm going to say that... I don't know. I'm going to make a big call here. I'm going to say that Patrick Cripps gets 32 or more disposals. And, yeah, we're going to go with the Blues by 29. And I think that Patrick Cripps is going to make a better image to get 32 or more disposals. Because he's been in some really good form lately. The captain, skipper. So, yeah, Carlton by 29. Then at Marvel Stadium, this is the Friday night game between Essendon and the Adelaide Crows. Now, since this one is at Marvel, look, I think the Bombers probably should be able to take advantage. Adelaide, generally speaking, they have had one win at Marvel this year, I believe. But they aren't the best side at Marvel. Now, they did get a nice win over my Saints. A real sloppy scrap fest, and they really pulled away late in that last quarter. Really used their home ground advantage in the wet. So credit to them there. As being said, I think Essendon should be looking to respond I think that they're probably the better team by far. I think they'll want to be making top 4, so I'm going to go with the Bombers. I think this is going to be a close one. I think we saw another close thriller this season between these two earlier on in the year where, you know, it was a bit controversial. Obviously, with Sam Draper dragging it in, it probably should have been a free kick to Adelaide after the siren, even though I didn't think so. I'm pretty sure I was actually backing in Sam Draper there. But I'm going to go with the Bombers by 9 points to get a nice win on Friday night. A close game. Good game to watch. I'm going to make a big call that both sides score above 85 points. So this is going to be a really good high-scoring game. Then at GMHBA Stadium, we have Geelong taking on the Bulldogs. I believe this would make sense to be on the Saturday night. I'm not too sure, but Either way, the Cats, they're in some really good form at the moment. They've won all their games convincingly. If you look at their last results, they had a 20-point win over Collingwood. They had a 51-point win over Hawthorn at GMHBA. Then they thrashed the Bombers by 45. So they're really starting to gain percentage back, and I think they are starting to purr again, the Cats. Meanwhile, the Dogs, well, they've been just a really up and down side. You'd think if they don't make finals this year, Bevo should get the sack. He probably should. You're missing out on finals 2 years in a row with the quality list. Just not good enough. But when the Dogs play away from Marvel, they're not the best side. Like, even if it is in Melbourne, doesn't matter the trip-wise, they're just not that good away from Marvel. We saw them got thrashed by Port. So, yeah, if this was at Marvel, I actually think that I'll probably be tipping the Dogs. But since this is just at GMHBA, I went with Hawthorn when the Cats played the Hawks. I got proved wrong. I just feel like you have to tip Geelong, although I believe Bulldogs did win their last game at the GMHBA in the last round of the season. I think the Cats are going to respond and get a 23-point win, GMHBA Stadium, in front of the home fans. Yeah, we'll go with the Cats by 23. Then at Giants Stadium, we have the Giants taking on the Gold Coast Suns. Now, the Giants, they were pretty good against Richmond. Look, they weren't that. They're starting to find, sort of like the Cats, they're starting to find a bit more form now, the Giants, even though it wasn't a convincing win. It was at the MCG, we do have to remember, and Hogan, Green, pretty much their whole team played a pretty good brand of footy. Meanwhile, the Suns, they had a nice win over Port Adelaide back at home. Damien Hardwick would be happy with the response from the North game. The North loss, obviously here. But the Suns, I'm not going to tip them away from home. I know lately I've tipped them away from home. I think I tipped them away from home against Fremantle and North Melbourne, which were recent games that they've played, obviously. But I'm just going to go with the Giants. I think that they're starting to find more form. And the Suns, they just can't travel away. I think we have to accept that. So I'm going to go with the Giants by 19 points. I'm going to make a big call that Toby Green and Jesse Hogan combined for 7 or more goals in this one. Next up at the MCG, we have the Hawks taking on the Pies. Well, you look at Hawthorn's form, I believe they've won 8 out of their last 9 probably. Maybe 7 out of their last 9, I don't know. But they are on they're on fire at the moment, the Hawks. They came up against an informed Freo side and won by 13 points. They really pulled away in that last quarter, which was nice to see, obviously. Meanwhile, the Pies, well, they're having some issues at the moment, being the premiership. Being the reigning premiers last year, we saw this with Geelong, they missed the 8. So can we see back-to-back premiers missing the 8? Would be rare, and I'd probably still back them in to make it. But with their form they're in, right now, it's looking like they're going to miss the 8. They are currently 8 and 7. They do have the 2 draws, so they are on 36 points, even though they do have 2 draws. Even though they do have only 8 wins, sorry. So that does help them. But look, I'm just going to go with Hawthorn here. It's at the MCG. This is really anyone's game. Remember we saw the Hawks at the MCG when the Pies, they were a bit out of form last year. But we managed to see Hawthorn. We watched Hawthorn get the result. I think they're going to get the result here. I'm not backing in Collingwood until they start proving themselves. So I'm going to go with the Hawks. This should be a pretty decent game. We'll go with the Hawks by 15. To get the result at the MCG. Next game at Marvel, we have the Saints taking on the Eagles. I know when this is. This is on the Saturday, 20th of July, obviously, at 11:45 p.m. my time, 11:45 a.m. my time, 1:45 p.m. Melbourne, Vic, and New South Wales time. And, so we're coming up against an Eagles side who, was being pretty out of form, pretty disappointing as of late. Obviously, their coach did depart last week. However, they were very competitive against Brisbane. Now, I don't know if that just fueled them because their coach, was there to watch them. He did the coin toss that had that energy. I don't know what we're going to get from West Coast because at Marvel, they're not the greatest side. They struggled to score at Marvel. Although their last game against Essendon, they scored 92 points, which was pretty good. But yeah, they're one of the worst teams at scoring at Marvel, I've just read. Well, the Saints, talking of not scoring, last week they only scored 5 goals, 9 in the wet, obviously. But look, I think at Marvel, because this is at Marvel, I think we should be able to respond. We bet them over in Perth, obviously. Remember going to that game where we actually won, and they actually were a pretty good side at home back then, the Eagles. So, look, I think I'm going to tip the Saints here. I'm not feeling that confident as I was a couple weeks ago, especially last week when we got the result over Sydney, and West Coast got absolutely demolished by 54 points to Melbourne. But I think the Saints should win. Hopefully, I think the odds are just favouring us. We've got the Saints by 22 points at Marvel to get a win. I just want to see a couple of late season wins, to be honest. And for us not to finish in the bottom four. I mean, our season's over. So, yeah, hopefully we can win and I'll back us in by 22 points. Then at the Adelaide Oval, we have the Power taking on the Tigers. I believe this is the Saturday night game. So Saturday prime time at the Adelaide Oval. Now, last time these two sides versed at the G, it was a pretty close game, even though it was at the G. The Power ran away with the victory, 122 to 92. So, that being said, Richmond, they actually play the Power pretty well. Obviously, they're a different side this year. They've been pretty disappointing, although their last game at the Adelaide Oval was a win over Adelaide. So, they could definitely win this game, especially with the way they played against GWS. The Power, on the other hand, well, they're just up and down, to be honest. I think whenever they lose, the pressure comes on Kenningly. But we do have to remember they did play up on the Gold Coast, which was a pretty tough game. I'm going to tip the Power here. I think they're just going to be too strong, unfortunately, for the Tigers. I'm feeling pretty confident in them to get a win. Let's go with Port Adelaide to get the 34-point victory at the Adelaide Oval. And my big call is that Port Adelaide will score over 110 points. Next up, at Optus Stadium, I believe this is the second last game, the 1:20 p.m. game for me, obviously. 3:20 p.m. for Victorian time, between Fremantle and Melbourne. Now, Melbourne, this is probably the wrong time to play them. A few weeks ago it would have been the right time, but right now, if you look at their last 3 weeks, okay, so we bring it back to the Friday night, obviously, where they were pretty competitive against Brisbane. If that wasn't a free kick paid to Brisbane, Melbourne probably would have won that one, and that was at the Gabba 2, generally speaking. If we move forward, they have the 54-point win over West Coast, which, we couldn't really make much out of that. But then they go and beat the Bombers in a bit of an upset by 17 in tough conditions at the MCG. And now they play at Optus Stadium against a pretty good Fremantle side. Are in some good form. Obviously, the Dockers were a bit disappointing against the Hawks last week. That being said, Melbourne are one of the best sides at Optus Stadium. And I'm just reading here that Fremantle have only won 2 out of the 7 games that they've played Melbourne at the Optus Stadium. So this is going to be a real tough one to predict. I'm sensing an upset. I think the D's are going to win this matchup. I know Fremantle, they're trying to push for top 4, and if they do lose this, those top 4 hopes, with Brisbane coming in now and Essendon still fighting, it's going to be tough, but I'm going to go with Melbourne. They play it Optus very well, even though they did lose to the Eagles. They generally play Fremantle well at Optus. Now, I do know they did get demolished by them by 92 points in Alice Springs. I get that. But I just have a feeling that Melbourne, they're going to show up. You just never know with Fremantle. They can drop these games. So I'm going to go with Melbourne by 17 points at Optus Stadium to get a victory there. And, yeah, if they win this, they can really make themselves a final spot. I think if they do win this, they probably will end up making finals, Melbourne. Yeah, those are my tips for this week. So I went the Lions by 12, the Blues by 29, the Bombers by 9, the Cats by 23, the Giants by 19, the Hawks by 15, the Saints by 22, come on the Saints, the Power by 34, and the D's by 17. That is going to wrap up this video. If you did enjoy, please do hit the like and subscribe button. Appreciate you guys all. I'm pretty sure we almost are at 100 subscribers. So if you guys could please get me there, that would be awesome. Thanks for the support, and we'll see you in the next video.